Welcome to something else entirely, where we center the weird so we may grow stronger in spirit.
Hello. Thank you for tuning in to Something Else Entirely. My name is Annie. I don't have very much of a plan or a great sense of where to begin. I could begin at the beginning, if there is a beginning, which there may or may not be. If there is a beginning somewhere, it's probably too far away for me to start there and get done in 20 or 25 minutes. I also realize I'm probably not going to be very good at the new thing, so you're going to see me look at my notes. It's going to be messy, but I'm going to begin. I am here mostly because my students asked me to be here, and also because I believe I finally have information worth sharing. And not to pat myself on the back too hard, but people for a long time have said, Annie, you're such an engaging storyteller. You should have a podcast. And I thought, a podcast about what, though? I don't really have anything to say. And yet, here we are. And if you had asked me 10 years ago to even listen to a podcast about synchronicities, mystical experiences, the science of magic, I would have harshly judged the host of such a podcast as being a weak and fragile-minded person who just doesn't have what it takes to face the harsh reality of meaninglessness that science has proven as true. Because I believed in facts and studies and peer-reviewed journals. And I still do. I am a PhD scientist. I was rigorously trained in the hard sciences for nearly the entirety of my formative years, and you really can't shake that kind of thing. It does something to your mind that is lasting. So I had that training. And in recent years, I added the training of meditation to my life. And I began to have experiences that I could not explain with my mainstream scientific worldview. And so I started reading different journals from different scientists and listening to different lectures and reading different books. And I came to understand reality as something else entirely. And I am not going to tell you my direct experiences with the magical just yet, because that's bad storytelling. And you don't want to blow your load in episode 1, you know? So instead, I'll tell you how I became interested in this. So I entered my current interest in consciousness through noticing what our media consumption was doing to our so-called mental health, right? And those of you who know me will know I love to be angry, righteous anger. I believe merited righteous anger about what social media and smartphones have done to our precious attention. And I still do hate the media companies. I hate them for extracting our precious attention for their profit. That is appalling. It makes me want to throw up. And what their business models and incentives have done to our sense of trust in our fellow human beings, to our feelings of belonging, and I hope that Meta and TikTok burn to the ground, because short form media is poison, and that is a different podcast. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. Sorry, once I get going on that particular rant, I've been doing it for so long, it's hard for me to stop. But I'll back up and just say that I noticed for years that the extraction of our attention is bad. It makes me upset. I thought, why does this make me so upset? It makes me upset because I believed even years ago that our intention and attention are sacred. I wrote an article about it in 2020. And I thought I had a pretty decent narrative at the time. I said, our attention is sacred because we will die. And our attention is our one most precious finite resource. And while that is true, what I've come to realize is that the rabbit hole goes much, much deeper. What I have discovered and am convinced of, both through experiential knowing and scientific validation, is that our attention and intention have the ability to alter physical reality. Yep, I'm gonna come right out and say it. Magic is real. At least some of it. And yes, there are charlatans and liars and frauds all over the place, but that is also true in science and religion and essentially every human endeavor. And so, of course, it's true in the world of the supernormal also. And so in this podcast, I'll do my best to summarize in simple language. There are many people out there actually already, very, very smart physicists and academics talking about these topics, and I will leave the intellectual speaking of them to the people who are much more skilled in that than I am, and I will just tell you in simple language the leading edge research on the reality of human super abilities: precognition, mind-to-mind communication, remote viewing, healing, and all other varieties of scientifically validated, although suppressed, real magic. And I am also going to ask the question that cannot be asked. What happens when we die? I'm going to read you a little excerpt now. It won't be too long, don't worry. So, to consider the ultimate blind spot of the conventional humanities, their absolute refusal to consider any human existence beyond physical death. There are nearly 8 billion people on the planet as I write these lines written by Jeffrey Kripal, Superhumanities. There are nearly 8 billion people on the planet as I write these lines. Every single one of them will die. Death is universal. It is a physical fact that is not culturally or historically relative, and yet we cannot ask the obvious question about what happens to us, to every single one of us, after we die. We do not know, of course, partly because we have not asked the question in any truly robust, truly comparative, and truly systematic way. Why? I think the answer is obvious. Such a question is completely out of bounds, because to consider it fairly and deeply, which would mean to consider the full global witness of just such afterlives, including the extensive data of small children who remember previous lives in different bodies around the planet, would threaten the very metaphysical or anti-metaphysical foundations of the Western Academy. After all, we would be faced with the very real possibility that the human is not finally the embodied social self, a possibility to which every physical death and decay give a most dramatic and suggestive affirmative nod. What we now call psi or paranormal experiences would also suddenly become not only possible but plausible, since so many of these experiences appear to work like signals or communications between forms of consciousness that are not entirely delimited by a local brain or body. Suddenly, the human organism would look like a transmission station and not a production factory. Such a human existence beyond the social carbon, of course, is completely impossible in our present intellectual framework. It sounds like science fiction. That's because it is. Or as I would say, real magic. And so now, I realize at this point, some people are going to be quite upset, saying, oh, Annie's got her head in the clouds. She's not looking at reality clearly. I want to assure you I am. I'm not saying things aren't bad out there. I'm not saying we should just meditate our way into avoidance and pretend everything is fine. But as Nietzsche said, the strength of a person's spirit would then be measured by how much truth he could tolerate, or more precisely, to what extent he needs to have it diluted, disguised, sweetened, muted, and falsified. It is my hope that if we look at some weird truth that makes us uncomfortable, we may grow stronger in spirit. We may reclaim hope for a new kind of humanity, for a new understanding of what is real, for a new belief in what human creative potential truly is. We need hope more now than ever. And so I've been reading and researching for years to find some hope for myself. And maybe what I found won't work for everyone, and that's okay. You know, if you hate this or you think it's bullshit, just turn it off. That's fine. Then this isn't for you. I Googled it. There are literally over 4.4 million podcasts to choose from, so just go find a different one. I recommend Huberman, actually. That's where I started. I felt very safe there for years. It's just standard science. Nothing will make you uncomfortable. And he's a big, strong, handsome, bearded scientist man and will help you feel good. And so if this is too weird for you, go listen to Huberman. Also, I still drink AG1 every day. I'm not sponsored. It's just a fact. Anyway, there's so much content. I'm sure you'll find something. But if you are curious about the weirdness, if you want to feel something, if you want to believe that human potential is bigger than what we have been taught, then keep listening. Stay with me, because there is something else entirely. And I'm here to share suppressed scientific information, yes, but I am also here to be a messenger and an advocate for the emerging superhumanities. And so, as consensus reality crumbles around us and we watch our planet slowly perish, unclear if we will be able to turn it around, and so many people continue to focus their precious attention on whatever trash the media machine is spitting out that day, it seems necessary to start centering the weird, to start elevating these weird stories. And so now I will tell you some stories. This first story happened a couple weeks ago when my students asked me, will AI become conscious? They love this question. They're very concerned with the consciousness of AI. And so my first response is always, have you become conscious? And when I dig in a little deeper, asking them, what does that mean to you? It turns out many of them aren't clear what they even mean by consciousness. Many confuse it with cognition, which is something completely different. So I asked them to turn to their neighbor and talk about the weirdest synchronicity they'd ever experienced. And the stories came pouring out of them. One student talked about how when she was a little girl, she was old enough to remember it, but little enough that she still needed a booster seat, in the car, a little booster seat. And she was getting in to get in the car when her parents picked her up. And she just threw a tantrum demanding that her booster seat be switched to the other side of the car. She'd never done that. And her parents said, okay, fine, we'll move it. So they moved the booster seat to the other side of the car. Not 1 minute later, that car T-boned. She would have died had she not switched to the other side of the car. In another story, a young student of mine had a dream about a phone number, a full phone number, vividly dreamed this number, and woke up and had, bless him, had the good sense to call the phone number in his dream. And it turned out it was some people who had helped him out of a pretty risky, dangerous situation some time earlier. And he didn't have their number. He had never saved their number. So he was able to, where did that information come from? Coincidence? That sequence of numbers? Another student of mine was estranged from his father for multiple years. And he went to visit his grandmother, and his grandmother said, I think you really need to talk to your dad. You really, please, I just have this feeling I really need you to talk to him. They've been estranged for years. And so he said, okay, to his grandma, and he went and he had a nice conversation with his dad, a real moment of connection. And his father passed away 1 week later. And there were many, many more stories like that. Almost everybody had one. These stories matter. The students get emotional when they share them because they know they carry meaning. Many of us know deep down there's something we haven't been told. We can feel it. And so this podcast will elevate that feeling. We'll explore consciousness beyond materialism, talk about all of the bad isms. If those words don't mean anything to you yet, don't worry, we'll walk through it. We'll center the weird and the magical and the things that so many of us experience but are told to ignore or suppress or laugh it off as a coincidence. I'm here to ask, what if they're not coincidences? What would that mean for how we choose to live our lives? And in the end, I am doing this because I love my students, and they deserve to hear this information. I've only within the classroom setting hinted at these topics once for about 15 minutes at the end of class when we had finished our regularly scheduled programming a little early. And I'm not kidding you, I almost cried when nearly half the class stayed after just because they wanted to hear more. They know it, they feel it, the things we're not allowed to talk about in polite society, the stories and conversations that would never be welcomed inside the official academy. And so I will share them here, outside of that system, in a space where freedom of speech, at least for now, still exists. And I don't know if anyone's even going to listen to this, but it feels right. It feels joyful. And for years, I've been saying to my students, do you know what creative inspiration feels like in your body? Do you know that feeling? Follow it, follow it, follow it. And so here I am, finally following my own advice. And my heart is so full of gratitude for all of them, for the weirdness and the beauty of this human experience, for the gift of being alive in this physical body right here, right now, for the opportunity and freedom to use my voice to gently place real magic in the center of this conversation. And if anyone out there is still listening after all of this, from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in to something else entirely. Hey guys, that was episode 1. Thank you for tuning in. I forgot to mention that I would love to hear your weirdest synchronicities. Actually, because I want to hear them, so leave them in the comments, which is insane to say. There will be no short form versions of this because I don't want followers. I want people who know how to lead themselves. All right, we'll see you next time.